This is not just a story about justice, it's a story about courage, silence, and the strength of one woman who refused to be broken. In a quiet suburban town, where police sirens blended into the background noise, something unthinkable happened. A respected teacher, with no criminal record, was suddenly at the center of a crime she didn't commit. The accusations were swift. The media, relentless. And behind it all was a lie powerful enough to ruin her life. But what they didn't know was, she had. This is not just a story about justice, it's a story about courage, silence, and the strength of one woman who refused to be broken. In a quiet suburban town, where police sirens blended into the background noise, something unthinkable happened. A respected teacher, with no criminal record, was suddenly at the center of a crime she didn't commit. The accusations were swift. The media, relentless. And behind it all was a lie powerful enough to ruin her life. But what they didn't know was, she had. It started on a Tuesday. The kind of Tuesday that felt like any other, coffee in hand, keys in her purse, Mariah humming softly in her car speakers. Amelia James, a high school history teacher, had just finished grading midterms and was heading to school early. She had a routine. Organized. Predictable. But as she turned the final corner near the school's parking lot, a patrol car was blocking the entrance. Confused, she rolled down her window. An officer she didn't recognize approached her car. Inside the precinct, they placed her in a dim, windowless room. Hours passed. No lawyer, no call. Just silence. Then, two detectives entered. They accused her of stealing expensive electronics from the school, items she didn't even know had gone missing. Amelia was stunned. "You're targeting the wrong person," she pleaded. But they pushed harder, hinting they had proof. When she asked to see it, they dodged. Their tone was calculated, aggressive, but vague. It wasn't just about what they thought. Later, they told her they'd received an anonymous tip. No name. No time. Just that someone had seen her load stolen goods into her car after school. She asked when this supposedly happened, but they wouldn't give her a date. That's when the first alarm rang in her mind. She remembered she had a dashcam, always running while driving. She didn't mention it, yet. Something wasn't right. She realized this wasn't about finding the truth. It was about making the facts fit their story. And the deeper S. After her release on conditional bail, Amelia sat in her small apartment, replaying everything. The cold stares. The officer's strange behavior. Then something clicked. One of the detectives, Detective Roy Carter. She'd heard that name before. A former student's older brother, someone with a reputation for being clean on paper, dirty in practice. She remembered rumors. Quiet ones. About how he cleaned up messes for others in the department. But what would he have against her? She pulled out H. 3 years earlier, she had reported an incident involving a student being bullied, racial slurs written in their locker. The school wanted it buried, but Amelia had pushed for an investigation. The student who got expelled had ties to Roy Carter's family. At the time, she didn't think much of it. But now? It made sense. She remembered receiving a veiled threat in her inbox weeks after the report. "You should learn when to mind your own business." She'd ignored it then. But now, sitting in the S. Amelia stepped out slowly, heart racing, confused more than afraid. Students had begun gathering nearby, their faces a mix of surprise and curiosity. "This must be some mistake," she said, trying to stay composed. But the officer wasn't listening. 2 more patrol cars pulled up. Before she could ask anything else, her wrists were cuffed in front of her students, her co-workers, her community. Whispers spread like wildfire. Phones recorded. No one stopped it. She kept asking for an explanation, but The next day, Amelia received an unexpected message. An anonymous school employee offered to talk. They didn't give a name, only said, "I know what they're doing to you. Meet me after hours." That evening, she drove to a diner just outside of town. A young custodian named Marcus slid into the booth. Nervously, he revealed that he'd seen officers in the school security room a week before the arrest, deleting footage. "I wasn't supposed to be there," he whispered, "but I saw Carter himself pulling." With her own dashcam footage intact, Amelia knew what she had was valuable. But she also realized, if Carter had tampered with school security tapes, this was more than personal, it was criminal. She uploaded her dashcam clips to a secure online drive and shared them with her lawyer. The attorney, Ms. Rivera, was calm but firm. They picked the wrong woman. They planned to subpoena the school surveillance system logs, but she warned Amelia, "Expect pressure. If he knows we're close, they'll TR." As days passed, Amelia began noticing strange things. Her car's back window had a long scratch she didn't remember. A man she'd never seen before followed her in the grocery store. Then a call came, no voice, just breathing. She told Ms. Rivera, who reassured her they'd file a harassment complaint. But fear began creeping in. They wanted her scared, isolated, silenced. But Amelia reminded herself why she started. This wasn't just about her. It was about every person who'd ever been silenced by a. Ms. Rivera received an encrypted email forwarded from a source inside the school district. Attached was a memo, unsigned, but damning. It stated that certain records had been altered to match the timeline of the suspect in the theft case. Amelia couldn't believe it. They weren't just framing her with false claims, they were manufacturing the story entirely. The email hinted at more names, more officers, maybe even school board members. "This is bigger than Carter," Rivera said. "We just opened." The preliminary hearing was set. Amelia walked into the courthouse feeling every pair of eyes on her. Some looked curious. Others, judgmental. The prosecution came in confident, armed with edited security logs and a timeline they thought was airtight. But Ms. Rivera stood tall beside her, calm and prepared. As the judge reviewed documents, Rivera submitted the dashcam footage. "This directly contradicts the timeline," she stated. The room shifted. Carter, sitting in the back, didn't flinch, but a. Marcus, the school custodian who had reached out to Amelia, was nervous but brave as he took the stand. He testified seeing Carter in the school's security room the night before the footage disappeared. The prosecution tried to discredit him, said he had nothing to lose. But Marcus remained firm. "I saw what I saw. And I couldn't stay quiet." His testimony didn't just support Amelia, it shattered the illusion of impartiality. As he stepped down, he whispered to Amelia, "You're not alone anymore." Later that week, something unexpected happened. A uniformed officer approached Ms. Rivera after court. He didn't give his name, just said, "Carter's not the only one. If you dig into department logs from last November, you'll find more." Then he walked away. Rivera passed the message to Amelia, and they requested access to internal records. Within those, they found something chilling: cases dismissed quietly, footage overwritten, all with Carter's signature involved. He wasn't a lone wolf, he was. The more Amelia pushed, the more it seemed like the system pushed back. One morning she woke to find her landlord delivering an eviction notice, no reason listed. Her car was keyed again, and someone leaked her mugshot online, sparking cruel comments and death threats. "Let it go," some friend said. "It's not worth it." But Amelia knew if she walked away now, they'd win. This wasn't just about her reputation anymore, it was about sending a message that truth can be buried unless someone fights Lee. Meanwhile, Rivera filed a motion for discovery, demanding full access to the school's backup servers and police communications. At first, the court hesitated. But under media pressure, they relented. What they found was damning. Multiple data deletions happened from the same IP range, linked to a device last used by Carter. Even more shocking, emails between officers hinted at removing risk and neutralizing noise, referring to Amelia's defense. The media began sniffing around. Reporters outsid. By the following week, Amelia's story had hit the local news. Teacher framed? Dashcam footage contradicts police report. Journalists began circling the courthouse, asking questions no one wanted to answer. Ms. Rivera appeared on a live segment, calmly laying out inconsistencies in the case. Amelia, once the subject of whispers and blame, was now being seen as a possible victim of corruption. Carter remained silent, refusing interviews. But behind the scenes, pressure was mounting. Amelia's INB. An unexpected email came in late at night. No name, just a burner address. Attached was an internal police memo with Carter's name highlighted. The subject, Protocol for Silencing Disruption. It detailed how to discredit individuals using staged evidence and misinformation via arrest. Amelia forwarded it to Rivera. They cross-checked metadata. It was real. Now, someone inside the force was leaking. Someone who wanted justice. Rivera warned her, "This is explosive. We have to be careful now." As media heat increased, the school board was forced to hold a public meeting. Parents showed up in droves. Some were angry. Others were scared. Questions flew. Why were there no cameras? Why was a teacher accused without due process? Under pressure, one board member resigned mid-meeting. Another admitted they'd received unusual requests from local police regarding Amelia. The district's lawyer tried to contain the damage, but it was too late. The story had legs. What began as a false accuse. Within the police department, cracks deepened. 2 junior officers requested transfers. An internal affairs investigation was suddenly announced. Rivera knew it was damage control, but it was a win. Carter was placed on temporary leave, though no formal charges were filed, yet. When Amelia walked past the station one morning, she noticed something new: stares. But this time, they weren't smug. They were quiet. Respectful. Maybe even ashamed. One officer nodded faintly at her. That single gesture. Rivera filed a formal motion to dismiss the charges, citing lack of credible evidence, tampering, and malicious intent. The judge reviewed the case privately, including footage, witness accounts, and the internal leaks. Days later, in a packed courtroom, the decision was read aloud: all charges against Amelia James are hereby dismissed with prejudice. Amelia closed her eyes as tears welled up. She wasn't just cleared, she was vindicated. The courtroom erupted, not in noise, but in breath. Along. The charges were gone, but Amelia knew her battle wasn't over. Her name had been dragged through the mud, her life upended. She'd lost friends, faced public humiliation, and lived in fear. Now, she wanted accountability. Rivera began preparing a civil case against the department and school district for wrongful arrest, defamation, and emotional trauma. Amelia also began speaking out: podcasts, interviews, and community events. "Cleared doesn't mean healed," she said in one speech. And justice is. The lawsuit was filed. Names were listed. Allegations backed by evidence, timelines, and witness statements. The city pushed back, of course, denying wrongdoing, blaming procedural errors. But the media had already told the story, and the public was watching. Carter, still under investigation, avoided the spotlight. Meanwhile, Amelia's legal team uncovered emails where officers discussed arrest quotas, reputation management, and even keeping troublemakers quiet. One email ended with, "Just ma." Amelia's courage inspired others. A former officer who once worked with Carter came forward anonymously. He shared documents showing how Carter had helped bury at least 2 previous complaints, one involving excessive force, another racial profiling. Another parent from the school admitted their child had been unfairly targeted too, but they'd stayed silent out of fear. Amelia realized her case had opened a door many were too afraid to touch before. Now, that door was wide open, and the truth was. As pressure mounted, the city offered Amelia a settlement, money in exchange for silence. No admission of guilt. No changes to policy. Rivera let her decide. Amelia stared at the offer, her hands trembling. It was enough to start over, to escape. But something inside her screamed no. If I sign this, she said, they'll keep doing it to others. She refused. Instead, she demanded full trial proceedings and policy reform. She didn't just want compensation, she wanted reform, apologies, and public aid. The trial began. Crowds gathered. Media vans parked outside the courthouse. What started as a simple teacher being accused of theft had now turned into a historic case about abuse of power. Amelia testified with calm strength. Marcus returned, braver than before. Evidence was laid out in cold, undeniable detail. Carter's silence became his weakness. By week's end, headlines blared, James versus Justice System, a fight for every silenced voice. For once, it wasn't just about her. It was about what? The jury deliberated for 2 days. Tension hovered over the courtroom like fog. Finally, they returned. The foreman stood and read the verdict, in favor of the plaintiff, Amelia James. A surge of emotion washed over her. She wasn't just believed, she was vindicated in front of the world. The court awarded damages, but more importantly, the judge ordered a public investigation into the department's practices. Reporters swarmed, cameras flashed, but Amelia stood tall, steady. This win isn't just. The fallout was swift. Carter was formally dismissed and charged with misconduct. Several school officials resigned or were reassigned. The police department underwent review, and new training programs were implemented with transparency oversight. But what mattered most was the shift in the community. People began speaking out, showing up, demanding better. Amelia helped create a local justice council, an open line between the people and the system. What was meant to break her had turned her into. Months passed. Amelia didn't return to teaching, not yet. Instead, she traveled, speaking about truth, power, and reform. She met other victims, other survivors, some still fighting, some who had given up. To them, she offered hope. You don't need to be loud to fight, she'd say. You just need to be brave enough to speak. Her story was turned into a documentary. Universities invited her to lecture. And through it all, she carried her journal, the one where she had first written down the name CA. Amelia stood once more at the place where it began, the school parking lot. No sirens this time. No eyes watching with suspicion. Just her, standing still. She breathed in deeply, knowing she could never get back what they tried to take. But she had reclaimed her voice. And with it, she'd exposed lies, saved others, and changed the very system that failed her. They thought she was alone. They thought she'd fold. But Amelia James was never just a victim, she was a force. And when the truth stood be.